Well, first on, it's been 10 years of war here for Ukrainians. We might have covered it extensively since February 24th, 2022, but in fact, Russia first invaded Ukraine in 2014 as a response to those protests. On the 21st of November 2013, there were a few hundred people here in Kiev who gathered as a form of protest because their government had suddenly decided to shelve an economic agreement between the European Union and Ukraine, and the pro-Russian Yanukovych government was again nearing itself from Moscow. And that's something that Ukrainians didn't want anymore. And what first started as a very peaceful protest was soon repressed in violence. The Berkut police anti-riot police that was since dismantled after the revolution. The Berkut killed 108 Ukrainians during November 2013 and February 2014, and which led to the revolution of February in 2014. And then that was used as a pretext for Russia to invade Ukraine once Yanukovych fled Ukraine. So Ukrainians have been fighting for those 10 years. So that was a very important anniversary to mark and to still mark, because the Euromaidan lasted for the last week of November and the first week of November, and the revolution went on to February of the year after. So 10 very important, significant years here in Ukraine.
Well, the anniversary is so significant that a number of foreign leaders have made trips to Kyiv this week in a show of solidarity.
Absolutely. There was Charles Michel, the president of the European Council, who came on the 21st of November here in Kiev to mark his support at a moment where when Ukraine is trying to join the European Union. And there were those words from President Zelensky, who was saying that during the Orange Revolution in 24, well, the idea of joining the European Union was just a romantic dream which had transformed after the 2014 revolution into an ambitious goal, and that was now a reality, because in 3 weeks, the European state members will actually decide if the candidacy of Ukraine is valid or not. So that's something that Ukrainians are very much looking forward to as a way of hope in very dark times here.
And President Zelensky also welcomed the formation of a 20-nation coalition to boost air defences. How will this take shape?
Well, this new coalition is very important here in Ukraine, because we've talked about it before. The country is constantly shelled by Russian forces, and its energy infrastructures are targeted, but also civilians. And this coalition will, on top of the aid, the air defense that has been already sent by Ukraine allies, such as by the United States or by Germany, which pledged a further 4 IRIS-T air defense systems. Well, this is going to add up and protect a little bit more the energy infrastructures here, but also the population. So very important indeed. And I would like to add, I was mentioning Germany, the defense minister of Germany was also here for those commemorations. He also pledged 1.3 billion euros of additional military aid to Ukraine, and this comes as a relief here in Kyiv.
A relief as Russian shelling continues on in cities. You've just been in Kherson. Can you give us an update on the situation in that region?
Well, Kherson is very exposed. It's on the shores of the Dnieper River, and the opposite shore is actually still occupied by Russia. And that leaves the city very exposed to daily shelling. And we're talking about dozens of shellings on the region. Just for yesterday, there was a 50-year-old man who died in his flat in the city center of Kherson that was being shelled. So that was a residential building, not a military target. And for having been in Kherson only a few days ago, I can tell you that even if the city had been liberated by Ukrainian armed forces a year ago, well, you can still feel the edge, the danger. People there are only going out for essentials, when they're going grocery shopping, when they're going to work or to the doctor. But it's a city which lost a huge part of its inhabitants, 280,000 people pre-war, and there's only 70,000 people left who have usually no choice but to stay because they're old, because they have relatives with disability, and so on. So it's a city that is still very much on the front line, even if the Ukrainian counteroffensive seems to have made some progresses on the occupied shore of the Dnipro, with Kiev saying it has implanted bridgeheads on that side.
And what about the whole of Ukraine? What has been the toll on civilians since the start of the war?
Well, we've got very grim figures. Of course, we don't have military figures. We don't know how many people have died on the front line. But when it comes to civilians, the United Nations confirms that we've passed the bar of 10,000 civilians who already died since February 24th, 2022. They died in indiscriminate shelling. They also died under torture in occupied territory. So it's a very bad situation for civilians.
And as we can see, the cold is really starting to set in now. What further challenges does this bring for Kyiv?
Well, it brings several ones. First, when the energy infrastructures are being shelled, well, of course, when we have sub temperatures, as we are having now, even here in the capital, this is problematic for the population and especially for the most vulnerable people. Of course, Ukraine has a plan with generators. Also, a lot of generators have been donated by Ukraine allies, but there's only so much you can do when energy infrastructures are being targeted. And in terms of counteroffensive, this is also going to be a problem, because when the soil is frozen, of course, there's the issue of soldiers being really cold and slowed down because of those temperatures. But more importantly, a frozen soil also means more possibilities for new aggressions on the Russian side. And the Russian military has warned that Russia had really increased its attacks, especially in the eastern sector on the line Liman-Kupiansk and around Avdiivka, which remains a place of very active fighting indeed.
Emmanuelle, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. We really appreciate it. Thank you.